cold came early the day the veteran reached the mountain road, the kind that slid beneath skin and waited. Mark Calder drove with both hands steady on the wheel, jaw set, eyes forward. At 48 he moved carefully, not from fear, but from memory. The war had ended years ago, yet it lived in his joints, in the way sleep broke apart, in the habit of listening for sounds that did not belong. Beside him sat Duke, an aging Belgian Malinois with silver at the muzzle, posture upright, gaze fixed on the narrowing road ahead. Mark had spent his last savings on a cabin no one wanted. $1, a clean title, no questions. He told himself it was peace he was buying, a place quiet enough to let the past loosen its grip. The forest closed in as the road climbed, branches bare and iced, pressing close like a held breath. The engine sounded too loud. Duke shifted, ears lifting, body tightening. The cabin appeared without welcome, sagging beneath snow, half claimed by shadow. Mark cut the engine. Silence fell heavy and wrong. He stepped out, boots sinking deep, breath clouding. Duke jumped down and stopped cold. Not hesitant. Alert. His growl rolled low, controlled, the sound of recognition. Mark followed the line of the dog's stare and saw the gate. An old wooden arch leaned in the wind, one hinge creaking. Beneath it hung a figure, still against the white. For a heartbeat his mind refused the shape. Then reality slammed back. A young woman, arms bound, body slack, frost crusting her coat, boots dusted pale. Time narrowed. Duke barked once and surged forward, circling beneath her, whining. Mark ran. Snow sprayed, pain flared through his shoulder, lungs burning. He reached the gate and cut the rope with numb fingers, the blade sawing frozen fiber. She fell into his arms with a weight that felt wrong, too light, emptied. He lowered her carefully, checked for breath. Thin. Uneven. Alive. Mark stripped off his jacket, wrapped her tight, cut the bindings. Her wrists were raw, skin blue with cold. Duke pressed his body against hers, lending heat. Mark did not ask why. He did not look around for witnesses. He lifted her and carried her toward the cabin, knowing with certainty that whatever peace he had come seeking had ended the moment he cut that rope. The forest watched in silence as he crossed the threshold, branches unmoving, snow falling straight down. Mark felt the old switch turn on, the one that replaced thought with action. He had chosen whether he wanted to admit it or not. This cabin and this moment now belonged to him. Inside the cabin the air was stale but still, old wood and dust holding the cold at bay. Mark laid the woman near the fireplace and knelt, rubbing her hands between his own until feelings sparked faintly back. Duke lay pressed to her side, ears twitching at every sound. Minutes stretched thin. Then she stirred, eyelids fluttering open to hazel eyes sharp with fear. "You're inside," Mark said softly. "You're alive." She swallowed and whispered her name. Emily. Names were enough. He did not press her to speak. Safety came first. As warmth returned, memory followed. Emily spoke quietly, voice steady from habit, not comfort. She worked in the nearby town helping families pushed aside by paperwork and polite refusals. While sorting records for one eviction, she noticed numbers that didn't align. Property seized too fast. Funds redirected. Names repeating where they shouldn't. She asked careful questions. Someone answered them. They had not beaten her to death. Death made noise. Instead they staged winter to finish the work. Hanging her at the gate of a seized cabin meant isolation. Plausible accident, no witnesses. Mark listened, expression unreadable. He had seen this shape before, power hiding behind clean hands. Duke rose suddenly, pacing near the hearth, growling low. He pawed at the stone base, soot scattering. Mark knelt and brushed ash aside. One stone shifted under pressure. Not loose enough to fall, loose enough to hide something. Emily met his eyes and nodded once. She had hidden copies. Proof meant leverage, but only if she lived. Mark did not promise protection. He said only, "They'll come back." Emily nodded. She already knew. He waited until she slept, then pried the stone free. Behind it lay papers wrapped in oilcloth, transfers and notes that mapped corruption clean and simple. He slid them inside his jacket as Duke stiffened, ears snapping forward. Headlights flickered between trees. Engines slowed. Stopped. Mark dimmed the lantern and moved Emily behind the thickest wall. Duke took the doorway, body square, teeth just visible. Footsteps crunched outside, unhurried. Voices murmured. They expected a body. The door handle rattled. Duke surged forward with a fierce bark. Mark stepped in behind him. Back away. He did not shout. Flashlights jerked. Men swore. Calculations changed. Complications drew attention. Engines turned over. The night swallowed them again. Mark secured the door. The papers were not just evidence. They were an invitation. Outside, snow fell steadily, covering tracks but not erasing what had begun. Mark felt clarity settle where fear might have lived. The small life he'd been carrying fell away. Someone inside this cabin did not deserve to die quietly for knowing the truth, and he would not step aside. No. The storm arrived like a wall, swallowing sound and distance. Mark did not hesitate. He wrapped Emily tighter, checked Duke's flank by touch, and chose movement over burial. Snow cut sideways, stealing breath. Duke led, head low, shoulders rolling through drifts with stubborn precision, a thin line of blood marking torn skin but not spirit. They found shelter by instinct, a maintenance shed half sunk into a slope. Mark barred the door and pulled Emily behind stacked crates. She shook hard, fear and cold tangling together, eyes fixed on his face for cues. He pressed his forehead briefly to hers, grounding them both. Duke lay at the entrance, chest heaving, ears forward, a barrier. Hours bent and stretched. The storm searched. Mark listened for engines beneath the wind, for voices carried wrong. His hands numbed. His legs trembled. When Duke growled softly, Mark shifted Emily farther back and waited. Light cut through the snow. Not one vehicle. Several. Voices followed, louder now, carrying authority that did not bother to whisper. Orders. Names. The sound of boots rushing where minutes earlier there had been careful steps. Relief loosened Mark's shoulders by degrees. The door banged open and men in heavy coats moved past without looking twice. Outside, raised voices answered back. Someone protested. Someone else shouted for cuffs. Mark helped Emily to her feet when it was safe. Duke struggled up, favoring his side for a breath, then planted himself square again. Uniforms resolved in the spill of light. An officer paused, taking in Mark's posture, the way he placed himself without thinking. Recognition passed, brief and respectful. Work continued. The men who had returned to finish winter's work were led away, protests swallowed by wind and engines. When the storm eased, it left the world reshaped and bright. Emily stood wrapped in borrowed layers, alive in a way newly earned. Mark stood beside her, snow clinging to his beard. Duke pressed against his legs solid. For the first time in years, the future widened instead of narrowing. Mark did not mistake it for peace. It was space enough to choose again. His life had not ended where he thought it had. It had been waiting for a night long enough to test it, and a dawn strong enough to prove it could continue. As lights pulled away and the forest settled, Mark understood something he had forgotten how to say. Survival alone was not living. Standing when walking away would be easier carried weight, and weight he realized could become purpose if borne by choice. He exhaled slowly, breath fogging, feeling time move forward again, not as threat, but as invitation he could finally answer. Without flinching or retreating. Ever. Spring came in pieces, not all at once. Snow thinned at the clearing's edge. Light lingered longer. Mark rebuilt the gate first, sanding splintered wood, replacing the cracked beam that had once held death where welcome should have been. When it stood straight again, it opened clean and quiet. Mark stayed. He repaired the roof, sealed windows, learned which boards groaned only from age. He rose each morning with a place to stand and a reason to remain. The heaviness did not vanish, but it no longer defined every step. Nights ended in rest instead of vigilance. Emily returned when the road softened. She came with resolve, not fear. Bruises faded. Pale scars remained. She spoke with the town quietly, the same way she always had, but now people listened. The cabin became more than shelter. It became a place where those who had fallen through cracks could rest without explanation. Emily organized what Mark built, turning rooms into warmth and routine. Help arrived in small, stubborn ways. Repairs. Meals. Paperwork finished without humiliation. Strength returned without spectacle. Duke claimed the porch. Age settled deeper into his frame, silver spreading across his muzzle, but his eyes stayed clear. Children learned he was gentle but observant, a guardian who did not bark without reason. He watched the gate that no longer needed watching. The town changed its language. People stopped calling it that cabin and gave it a name. Stories arrived and were left safely behind. Mark listened more than he spoke. Emily guided without commanding. Together they built something that refused to erase the past but would not be owned by it. One afternoon Mark stood at the gate and watched light move across the clearing. Emily joined him. Duke settled between them. None spoke. Fear no longer ruled the threshold. Miracles, Mark learned, did not arrive with thunder. They came quietly through broken people who chose not to turn away. Mark had not come to the mountains to be a hero. Emily had not expected to survive the night. Duke did not know that staying once more would change everything. Yet they were placed together when it mattered. Not to erase pain, but to carry it together until healing became possible. If this story brought you hope, share it with someone who needs it. Subscribe for more stories of faith, loyalty, and second chances, and may quiet miracles find you exactly when you need them. May God bless your home and guide your steps forward. Always.